Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing a follow-up, and I'm going to have an outline for this video specifically because there's a couple themes that I want to address that I've seen in the comment section of my SayNoToRage video, kind of addressing and talking about that situation. I'm not going to highlight specific comments here because I don't want to publicly shame or make anybody feel like I might, just be kind of calling them out specifically, but but there's definitely some themes that are shared across multiple comments. And so I want to go over that here. Now, if you haven't seen that video and you want to check it out, I highly encourage you to do so. There's links to resources also in that video itself. That video or this video is going to assume that you have the context from that video. So I'm going to not necessarily try to restate that video at the start of this video itself. But for this video, if you're interested, what we're going to be talking about here today, especially as it relates to that video, is kind of a couple themes. First, was it harassment? I see a lot of people arguing that it wasn't, that they weren't victims or victimized by this. I kind of want to address this because there's two key conflicting ideas. Is the court of public opinion versus a legal court in this regard. So I see a lot of people looking at or trying to kind of legalize the court of public opinion and have some kind of real definition. I can understand the thought, but I don't think it's ultimately helpful. But we'll talk about that, and you can let me know if I'm way off base. I don't make these videos to try to change your mind in this case. So I think a lot of people, especially when it gets to kind of the second topic, I felt, I was disappointed by the fact that he is married. It's telling that his wife has stayed by his side. I think that's a really good thing. But people say hey, it's 2021, marriage is this or it's that, and I shouldn't have this viewpoint of it. And I do. It's to sit here and say that. Well, we'll go ahead and dive into it, but I don't say that to say that you have to agree with me. I think it's more, I share these stories so you have context of where my opinion's coming from. Same kind of thing applies to reviews. I think if you understand or can understand better where a person's coming from, you can choose to dismiss or you can choose to engage with that opinion. But I did see people say that I was wrong for having that, and I go, well, so we'll talk about that a little bit. And then I also want to talk about kind of the fighting with fire mentality. Should Sarah Daniels be canceled in this regard? Some people say that she should be canceled because of all this and evidence and things like that. And I want to talk about that because I don't think so. I don't think she should be canceled. I think if you're going to, denounce cancel culture, you can't turn around and use it as a weapon. But we'll get more into depth with that. And yes, Work the Game was blocked by Sarah Daniels. Now, we didn't tweet at her. We didn't do anything like that. But I think essentially we'll talk about what I think is actually going on behind the scenes based off of my ability to program. So if you guys don't know, I'm a software engineer. And as soon as she got tagged in a thread that we were tagged in, it was blocked. So I think that there's a bot or some kind of, somebody behind the scenes, obviously kind of managing that aspect. Because otherwise, I bet that's a little bit too much to handle. And her husband's a programmer for Bungie. I'm sure that they could figure out how to write a bot to kind of auto block anybody who gets tagged. And the reason I know this is because my Twitter, if you guys want to follow me, links in the description, is not blocked by Sarah Daniels. And I wasn't tagged in any of that. So that was just, it's not like there's somebody doing some research in that. So that's essentially the three themes. That's kind of the, where this video is going to head. And I'm just going to probably refer back to my outline because I made some points here and I just want to make sure that I state them clearly. So I typically don't do these scripted, but if you guys, just letting you know, so that way if you're where is he looking? Is somebody directing him, in this regards. I just made this because I think there's a couple key points that I hopefully will make clearly in this case. And yeah, that's the outline. So let's go ahead and get started. First and foremost, was it harassment? The court of public opinion versus a legal actual court. When I see people try to litigate whether these ladies were harassed or felt uncomfortable or are victims, and try to sit here and say, well, there is no legal case, they aren't victims, they weren't harassed. And the thing is that if you felt like I was harassing you and I didn't feel like I was harassing you, what's the choice here? How do we manage that? And I think it comes down to kind of a level of human decency. Now, this works against you in the court of public opinion. We saw this happen, and we see this happen outside of the Lono situation. The story that breaks first is the story that becomes the narrative. And so for times where cancel culture is shut down, is usually when the person who they're trying to cancel comes out first either denies or goes on the attack or says, here's the thing. And Lono was caught off guard and he apologized. So he's actually the second story. Pulling that down only cemented in a lot of people's minds that his guilt, and most likely haven't checked out any of the follow-up information. And that's kind of the whole point of that video that I made, is specifically because I believe light is the best disinfectant to anything. And this also includes Lono. Like if the more light that's on this story, the more things that are hidden can come to light. And this is so if Lono is trying to hide anything in the situation, guess what? It will be brought to light. But I've also made up my kind of personal opinion about it, and I'm not trying to change anybody's mind. I just think the more light that's on this subject, the more information will come out. That also would help inform and could change my opinion down the road. And that's the whole point of where this gets going. But saying and discounting the reports doesn't do Lono any favors. Like going and sitting here and saying, you weren't harassed, you weren't this, because maybe they felt harassed. Like, we can't know the intent behind somebody. You can never know. You can assume, you can infer, there's evidence. So there's like you can get to a point where you're like, I'm pretty sure of X, Y, and Z with an individual, but a person, you can't really know a person's heart or an intent. You can only kind of judge and kind of infer, like I said, by their actions and by what evidence is there. So that being said, is that whenever like we're sitting here trying to discount that report, I don't think that does Lono any favors. The story in my mind, and a good story is, especially over the fact that this happened years prior, is that these ladies felt harassed or felt uncomfortable, whatever label you want to apply to it. Lono apologized and he then changed. I think that is the story. That's what we want in human beings. That's what we want in each other. The internet has a hard time with that. Like, the internet's like, you have to be perfect all the time. And I think that obviously that is far from reality. I don't think people really kind of thought through cancel culture as it relates to this aspect. Because if a person can't be forgiven, if they can't change, if they can't evolve, if they can't grow, what other option is there? Like, if you're sitting here saying like, well, if I'm going to try to change, I'm going to try to be better, I'm going to try to improve, I'm going to apologize, I'm going to be a decent human being, and the internet says, no, you're not, you're done, there's no hope for you. Like, well, why change at all? Like, what's the other option? Go to war? Like, it's like, it doesn't seem to have that other thought, because it's like, it comes from a thing of, and this is kind of where you can't really control mobs, you can't really control violence. And people who think that they can, might for a time, but the mob is always going to shift, and it's going to, it will always come for you, like in that regards. In the end of the day, anybody who puts himself out there publicly is always at risk for, getting the sight of the mob and that focus. And really where it gets dangerous is when that mob gets, has a sense of there's a moral, there's a good, like a good versus evil. Like, nothing empowers people more when they think they're on the side of good. And that's, that's where I think in video games, like, the best villains are the hero in their mind, right? It's like the best villains, like, oh, what I'm doing is for the good of everybody. This is to help protect, this is to save, I'm defending. And that's where it gets, and that's where you see this tip over into that kind of, total war mentality, that constant oppression. So I again, like I said, like, it's not whether you felt like they were harassed or whatnot, you weren't them. You only go based off of what they say. And I think if you accept that, and then you look at how Lono handled it, that's the story that we should all strive for. We should all strive to be better, to learn from our mistakes, and to make a change and go forward from there. And that should be like, people won't always accept it, but when we go back to then trying to discount them saying it, like, it just, I don't know, it kind of shuts down the conversation. It makes somebody go like, no, like, I'm not going to sit here and victim blame or victim shame in that regard. So take it for what it is. Like, that's what these ladies reported. That should be the story that he went and changed and has got that fixed. Now, when we take this to a court of law, that becomes a whole different thing. That's where essentially I think this hopefully will go and end up and have some kind of resolution for everyone. Because at some point, cancel culture doesn't have a resolution. It doesn't have this sense of like either justice was served, everybody kind of had their say, new information was brought to light that wasn't previously shared. Like, when it comes down to that, then the court of law can look at it and look at what happened in terms of a legal definition, right? That's where that belongs. Like, whether the court of law legally thinks that they were harassed or assaulted, or like, and I'm saying assaulted, not that like everything I've seen, no assault actually occurred, but the where these real definitions, legal definitions come into play, I think that's where that belongs. And if this goes to that, that's where that should be. So don't, in my mind, don't try and legalize the court of public opinion, because it's more about trying to get more people to look at the situation either for the first time or for a second time, and then make a decision, or at least have it as a part of a conversation. Like, how can we as a society improve upon this? So I'm looking over my notes here. Real story, litigate. Cool. I just wanted to make sure I had those items there. So let me know what you think about that. So, was it wrong for me to get frustrated that he is married when these situations come out? And to a lot of people who said that, no, absolutely, you should not. Like, it's 2021. I replied, hopefully respectfully, but it's like, if I don't like carrots and you're trying to serve me carrot juice, I'm gonna let you know I don't like carrots. I don't think you should have to adjust or adapt to my standard, or how I hold my life, or how I choose to live my life. And I say this because it's even somebody was like, oh, will people call me a bigot because I have a view of that I married my wife and I have no intention on cheating on her. No, like, I'm not telling you how to live your life by my worldview in that regards, but I'm going to still have that and give you that information so you know whether you want to completely discount my view. And that's completely up to you. Like, that's, at the end of the day, that's the case. But just because, like, that's something I saw and I was like, oh, that really is frustrating. That's just how I feel. That's how I think. And I think it's really telling that his wife has stayed by his side. Like, that's really telling. That's the support. That's what you want in a spouse. I always kind of say, I've had people tell me, like, I'd never cheat. And I look at them, I go, have you been tested? Like, do you know? I just think that everybody's capable of it. Everybody's capable. And for me, I feel like I'm capable of it. So I try not to put myself in those kind of situations. That means when I'm around anybody that I find attractive, I don't drink. I just don't. And it's not because I have a history with that. It's because it's like, you know what? I would rather just protect my wife. I mean, that's at the core of it. She knows this very well. And it's like, okay, hey. And that's just something that I've always chosen to do. She's never asked for me to kind of have that mentality. That, or if I do drink, that I have a group with me that is like, hey, like, I don't think I would. It's not my intention. But at the same time, like, I don't know. Like, I would rather just not trust myself in that regards. I'd rather have that extra level of doubt in my own willpower, especially if like intoxicated. I like, it's just probably a weird conversation. You might be like, what the hell is this guy talking about? But that's just how I think. That's just how I kind of approach the situation. And obviously, I think there's, in my case, especially with Lono, we share a lot. Like, he's a dad, I'm a dad. Like, there's things that I'm very well aware of, and in this case, and I would like to make sure that not only am I protecting my wife, but protecting my kids. And when I see somebody, and especially in his situation, yeah, that's frustrating, because obviously I'm applying in my judgment, my worldview in this case. But I'm not trying to sit here and say that you have to apply that. But I think it's important that you know that about me, so you can choose whether or not to discount that, accept it, or just even say, oh, that's, follow that into the closet of how Brian's brain works in this case. So anyway, that's that's a weird section, but I wanted to talk about it because people are saying, like, I shouldn't think that way, and it's not like my brain's just gonna, like, not think that way, because that's just who I am. All right, fighting fire with fire. Should Sarah Daniels be canceled? First and foremost, I think that there is a bot that will block anybody, especially as it relates to any kind of tag. So Work to Game got tagged as a part of a tweet, and I think a lot of people came in, probably saw the video from that aspect. Welcome. I'm glad a lot of people seem to really enjoy the video. People were saying that I was brave, or that I've weighed the costs, and I have weighed the costs. I talked to my wife about making the video first and foremost, and so I did get her approval, because I was like there is a cost in terms of relationships with developers, that this could be a pro or could be a con in my case. And in some instances, I would say probably more of a con. Game developers really not into the drama of it. It's just like, hey, can we just make it about the games? And that's usually what I try to do here on the channel. I just felt like this was a really important subject. So I did get approval from my wife before sitting down and making that video, a couple of days beforehand, actually. And then I just thought about it, really kind of trying to make sure I had the right mindset. I've been thinking about this video since I posted the last one, but again, just kind of gathering feedback and thoughts from everybody. So I did weigh the cost, but in terms of was I brave? I don't feel brave for having posted that. I felt, honestly, like a kind of a coward for a long time because I wanted to make that video. I wanted to sit down and shine lights on it. I wanted to spend a lot more time gathering, and I did, email Lono or almost email him a couple of times, but then kind of chickened out. And I did finally email him, kind of apologize for having taken so long to follow up and kind of email him, because I did quietly cancel him. I did. When all that broke, it was just easy to kind of I don't know, the he said, she said, by the seashore, kind of mentality, kind of the high school clique mentality. Yes, this is adults. This is in a way business, we can't, anybody who says this is not like a business mindset, that's how I kind of view the whole thing. Doesn't see the money that is involved, like the ninjas of the world getting 30+ million. There are obviously tiers of people who make money, but it's there are people, and this can be a form of living, in that regard. So, I easily just quietly canceled it. I should have continued to ask more questions. But it was just easy because it's okay, all right, we were in talks. We were going to have him on the podcast a couple times. Scheduling conflicts happened. That then happened, and then it was just easy to be I don't know. I don't know the answers, and I still don't I really don't know what happens. I'm just understanding the information and just trying to shine light on it, like I said. So, I don't feel brave about it. I don't feel good about it, in that regards. And I'm happy. I've been honestly, the Bungie kicking him from the game for no reason, that's essentially what brought light back to it. That's what essentially kind of allowed me to come back and look at the situation, because that's just the weirdest thing out of all of it. Now, obviously, let's just take the approach that, Sarah Daniels or others are, actively trying to shut down Lono for whatever reason, whether they feel like it's deserved, or whether they've dug themselves too deep into the situation. To kind of say, we can't change the narrative now. We're already pot committed, right? It's in a game of poker. But why did Work the Game get banned? I think that either under legal advisement for her to make sure she doesn't say anything else, it's just easier to have a bot auto ban. The fact that it happened as fast as it did, there's no way that she's got that kind of time, especially as more people keep talking about it. To go sit here and block. Now, I went ahead and blocked her back. The reason why I feel like it's definitely a bot is because my actual Twitter account, the one that wasn't blocked, is still not blocked. But the one that was tagged is. And so that's where it's okay, there's something going on. And the fact that her husband's a programmer, the fact that all that, it just makes sense that you could say anytime that you see any of this or this topic and it has anybody tagged, just auto block, because we don't want her either saying something or having an emotional response to it. You cannot, if she feels like she was in the right, that she did the right thing, it could easily be frustrating to constantly have this coming up. And that's the cost of it, right? That's when you start to think through, what's the appropriate action? And like I said in my first video, the problem with cancel culture is when you take it to the public, you prevent the accused from having their side being spoken. Because I think everybody, we believe, and at least in a system of that, you should be able to at least have a defense. If you're guilty, let's let some arbitration. Let's let somebody have that conversation to have that, justice being served as best as it can here on Earth. And so, with that aspect tied into it, there isn't that. We haven't had any kind of arbitration. We haven't had any kind of, legal kind of thing. And if that is happening behind the scenes, that would be something to kind of keep her from saying anything. That kind of would make sense, that especially as other people have posted videos on it with clips of her. Yeah, that's stuff for the court of law. Like, you said that you didn't do this, but then here you are publicly saying that you did do this. Evidence of the kind. So you would want to keep somebody from speaking out. Or if no legal things going on, it just kind of makes sense to be like, I'm kind of done with that. You know, like, I don't want to be that was the story then and we've moved on, right? So you just kind of, it's just easy to do that, right? In social media. It's easy. And that's what makes cancel culture a weapon. It's easy. I unfollowed. I just, I didn't block. It's just like, all right, cool. Hands off. I'm going to step back, not going to worry about the situation. And I'm going to just focus in on the fun stuff. And so I was wrong in that case. Like, I think essentially nothing else, like, hopefully my hope for all of this is that there is some form of litigation, some form of review, and that there is some answer. And that comes down to, and I've seen people say Lono can't afford that. And that's where I think the best thing anybody can do in this case is just continue to look at it. More light, more attention onto the story itself. I think that can then boil up, and people can have that conversation. So, I talked about the blocks. I talked about the best thing, again, Lono supporters, anybody who is especially on Lono's side needs to focus and hear these words very clearly. You got to be compassionate. You got to be measured. You got to be logical. And the goal isn't to actually win an argument for internet points. Like, that isn't what the goal should be. Like, going out and saying, and having the best argument and shutting down the conversation, because especially in internet terms and text form, it's easy to read that very negatively. So please hear these words, like, be compassionate, be logical, be measured, but most of all, also be, open and have be a part of that conversation, because you're not, like, I never feel like you're going to change anybody's mind with a quick worded tweet or a tweet with links and paragraphs of all this extra information. A lot of people are busy, right? People might be casually following this. I mean, so just be measured, be calm, be collected, and have that kind of approach in any kind of hot topic situation. That kind of comes back to finish off the first thought regarding harassment. Stop trying to legalize or legal debate within the court of public opinion. Like, okay, because that ends up keep focusing the story on this or that, and it doesn't get to the bigger story. Okay, if that's true, this is what was taken years ago. This was what happened to him, and this is what's going to happen. Like, you don't end up getting to the rest of that. And but those are just my opinions. And this is just my follow-up video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. And that's going to be hopefully the last piece that I have to, or I should kind of talk about it. We'll have to see if there's any kind of other follow-ups to this video itself. I do appreciate you guys. And as always, if you're in the comments, be respectful, to all sides of the conversation. That's the goal that I have. I'm always open to listen and to learn more. So if you guys, whether you agree or disagree with my thoughts and perspectives, just let me know what you think, and I'll do my best to hopefully grow and evolve and be a better human being. And that's, I think, what we want in life, maybe. Anyway, love you guys. Love your faces. Thanks for being here. Hopefully you have a good one, and I hope to see you in my next video. But until then, take care.